At midnight, in a high-end New York kitchen, the rain does not care about the tasting menu. It strikes the windows while the line is already hot, while the tickets are stacked, while 12 courses wait to be judged by people who may never know what it costs to put them on the plate. The room is stainless steel, steam, white coats, tight voices, and one sound cutting through everything: the clink of steel on a whetstone. A 10-inch Damascus steel knife rests in the chef's hand. And the first verdict arrives before the first cut. One slip, and your career is over. That is how the mind speaks when it has not been trained. It takes an appearance and crowns it as law. It sees pressure and calls it danger. It sees reputation and calls it life. It sees one possible failure and treats it as a sentence already passed. But the knife is not threatening you. The rain is not accusing you. The tasting menu is not measuring your worth. These are events. These are conditions. These are facts placed before you. The danger begins when the mind adds a judgment and then obeys it. Epictetus would not ask whether the kitchen is intense. It is. He would ask whether intensity has the right to govern your ruling faculty. He would ask whether the first impression deserves your assent. Before the next cut, there is a smaller action. Pause. Name what has appeared. Then return to what is yours. The first discipline in that kitchen is not knife work. It is not plating. It is not timing the sauce, controlling the pass, reading the eyes of the servers, or keeping the room from breaking under pressure. The first discipline is seeing the boundary. The chef stands at midnight with the 10-inch Damascus steel knife in hand. Rain hits the windows. The whetstone gives off that clean, hard clink. 12 courses wait. The room wants speed. The staff wants certainty. The guests want excellence. The reputation of the restaurant hangs in the air like heat over a pan. And the mind says, control all of it. Control the outcome. Control the reviews. Control whether every hand moves perfectly. Control whether the fish arrives at the exact temperature. Control whether the critic at table 12 understands the dish. Control whether one mistake becomes gossip. Control whether tomorrow morning your name is still safe. That is the false security. The mind believes safety comes from extending its command over externals. It believes that if it can grip the whole kitchen tightly enough, nothing can expose it. But the tighter it grips what is not its own, the more frightened it becomes. Epictetus begins somewhere harder and cleaner. Some things are yours. Some things are not. Not as an idea to admire. As a line to obey. Your judgment is yours. Your assent is yours. Your intention is yours. Your attention is yours. Your next response is yours. The rain is not yours. The reputation is not yours. The guest's opinion is not yours. The final outcome of the 12-course menu is not yours. Even the exact behavior of the kitchen is not fully yours. You can train people. You can instruct. You can correct. You can set standards. You can inspect the plate before it leaves the pass. But you do not possess another person's hands, another person's attention, another person's fear, another person's mistake. That does not remove responsibility. It clarifies it. A weak mind hears the boundary of control and thinks it has been excused from duty. It says, the outcome is not mine, so it does not matter. That is not Stoicism. That is evasion wearing a philosophical coat. The disciplined mind hears the boundary and becomes more precise. It says, the review is not mine, but the standard of my action is mine. The timing is not fully mine, but my attention to this moment is mine. The possibility of failure is not mine to erase, but the judgment I place on failure is mine to examine. The pressure is real, but it is not a ruler. This is where the chef must cut cleanly inside the mind before cutting anything on the board. The event is simple. A menu must be prepared. The conditions are simple: midnight, rain, heat, staff, guests, knives, plates, time. Then comes the added verdict: one slip means a ruined career. That verdict may feel sharp. It may feel convincing. It may arrive with the force of experience. Perhaps the chef has seen careers damaged by one service. Perhaps the city is unforgiving. Perhaps the industry remembers failure longer than effort. Fine. Reality may be difficult. But difficulty is not authority. The question is not whether the kitchen is demanding. It is. The question is not whether reputation can be harmed. It can. The question is whether these externals are permitted to decide the state of the ruling faculty. When the chef forgets the boundary, the knife becomes more than a knife. It becomes a test of worth. The course becomes more than a course. It becomes a public trial. The kitchen becomes more than a workplace. It becomes a courtroom. That is how the mind loses command. Not because the world became unbearable. Because judgment surrendered too early. So the work begins in a smaller place. Feel the handle. Hear the clink. See the edge. Return attention to the next governable action. Sharpen the knife. Check the station. Give the instruction clearly. Move the hand with care. Correct the plate without rage. Speak to the line without panic. Refuse to make reputation your master. This is not passivity. It is accuracy. The chef cannot command the storm outside, but he can govern the storm of assent inside. He cannot decide the verdict of every guest, but he can decide whether his own mind will kneel before an imagined verdict before the service has even begun. The boundary does not make the work easier. It makes the work honest. And honest work is the only place where freedom can begin. The first appearance is not the enemy. The first appearance is only the knock at the door. The chef hears the clink of steel on the whetstone, sees the knife edge catch the light, feels the pressure of the midnight service moving closer, and the mind receives an impression. This is urgent. This is personal. This can destroy you. That impression may arrive before words. It may arrive as heat in the chest, tension in the wrist, a sharper tone toward the line cook, a refusal to delegate, a sudden need to control every plate with force. The body moves as if a verdict has already been issued. But an impression is not yet a judgment. That distinction matters. An impression says, this appears dangerous. A judgment says, this is dangerous to my worth. An impression says, this service is difficult. A judgment says, if this service goes badly, I am finished. An impression says, people are watching. A judgment says, their opinion has authority over me. Epictetus places the fight there. Not in the rain. Not in the review. Not in the customer's face. Not in the trembling hand of a young cook. The decisive moment is the space between appearance and assent. Assent means the mind says yes. Not out loud. Not formally. But by obedience. The chef assents when he lets the thought one slip means a ruined career decide his next movement. He assents when he stops seeing the person in front of him and sees only a threat to his name. He assents when the knife becomes a weapon against his own attention. He assents when speed becomes panic, correction becomes contempt, and precision becomes fear wearing a white coat. The kitchen may still look professional. The plates may still leave the pass. The voice may still be controlled. But inwardly, command has changed hands. The ruling faculty has handed authority to an external. That is the value error. Failure has been lifted above judgment. Reputation has been lifted above character. The possible verdict of others has been given more weight than the present choice of the mind. A chef can recover a sauce. He can refire a course. He can replace a garnish. But if he gives assent to a false judgment, he works from slavery even while appearing disciplined. This is why the first verdict must be examined. One slip means a ruined career. Is that fact? No. It is a prediction. It is a sentence written by fear and stamped with authority before evidence has been heard. A slip may cost time. It may cost trust. It may expose weakness in preparation. It may require repair. It may have consequences. Stoicism does not ask the chef to pretend otherwise. The world is not softened to protect the mind from facts. But facts must remain facts. They must not be inflated into masters. The dish is overcooked. That is a fact. The guest is displeased. That is a fact. The critic writes harshly. That is a fact. My worth has been destroyed. That is a judgment. I cannot act cleanly now. That is a judgment. This moment has the right to command my character. That is a judgment. And every judgment must wait at the gate. The trained mind does not crush impressions. It inspects them. It says, you are only an appearance. Let me see what you are made of. So when the clink of the whetstone presses the mind to react, the chef must not rush to believe the pressure. He must not confuse intensity with truth. He must not call the first voice wisdom simply because it is loud. He pauses. Not long. Long enough to separate event from interpretation. There is a knife in my hand. There is a menu to prepare. There is rain outside. There is pressure in the room. There is a thought saying my career depends on this moment. That thought is not the ruler. Now the next action becomes possible. Not grand. Not dramatic. Just governable. Adjust the grip. Steady the cut. Give the instruction. Watch the flame. Correct the plate. Speak without poison. Keep the standard without worshipping the outcome. This is where freedom begins to take shape. Not after the review. Not after the final course. Not after applause. Freedom begins when the mind refuses to assent to the first false verdict. Training does not begin when the room becomes calm. Training begins while the room is still loud. The chef does not get a quiet temple. He gets a kitchen at midnight. He gets rain against the glass, heat from the burners, a line of cooks waiting for direction, plates moving too slowly, sauces tightening, knives flashing under white light, and the clink of steel on a whetstone reminding him that every edge must be maintained before it is trusted. That is ascesis. Not theory. Practice under pressure. The Stoic does not train so life will stop pressing him. He trains so pressure will no longer decide him. The work is not to remove the tasting menu, the reputation, the clock, the possible mistake, or the eyes of other people. The work is to meet those externals without handing them the throne inside. So the chef practices in the exact place where the false verdict appears. He hears, one slip means a ruined career. He does not argue with it like a frightened man. He examines it like a disciplined one. What is the event? A demanding service. What is the impression? This is urgent, personal, and threatening. What is the judgment trying to enter? My worth depends on the outcome. What is the assent trap? Letting that judgment choose my tone, my speed, my anger, my fear, my next movement. What is mine? Attention, intention, judgment, assent, the next response. That sequence is not decoration. It is the exercise. The chef returns to it again and again, because one pause is not enough to train a life. A person can understand the boundary of control in the morning and betray it by midnight. A person can quote Epictetus with confidence and still obey reputation when the room becomes hot. This is why ascesis must become physical. The hand reaches for the 10-inch Damascus steel knife. Feel the handle. Notice the weight. Let the edge bring the mind back to one point. Not tomorrow's review. Not the imagined failure. Not the guest's opinion. Not the old memory of humiliation. This cut. This plate. This instruction. This breath before the next word. The knife becomes a test of attention. Not because the knife is sacred. It is steel. It can cut well or badly depending on the hand that governs it. In the same way, pressure can expose discipline or expose slavery depending on the judgment that governs the mind. A chef who is not trained will rush toward control by force. He will tighten the room. He will confuse fear with standards. He will make every mistake feel like betrayal. He will speak as if urgency gives him permission to abandon justice. He will think he is protecting excellence while actually protecting his image. That is not command. That is panic with authority. Ascesis cuts through that. The practice is to keep the standard without worshipping the result. Correct the cook, but do not degrade him. Refire the dish, but do not turn the dish into your identity. Move fast, but do not let speed become blindness. Demand precision, but do not let precision become fear. Accept the facts, then act inside them. This is reality acceptance. Not surrender. Not softness. Not pretending the mistake does not matter. If the fish is wrong, it is wrong. If the sauce breaks, it broke. If the course is late, it is late. The trained mind does not waste strength denying the fact. It receives the fact cleanly, separates it from the added story, and asks for the next governable action. That is where discipline lives. The untrained mind says, this should not be happening. The trained mind says, this is happening. What is mine now? The untrained mind says, they will think less of me. The trained mind says, their thought is not mine. My conduct is. The untrained mind says, I cannot afford this mistake. The trained mind says, I cannot afford false assent. So the kitchen becomes the school. The whetstone becomes the bell. The rain becomes the reminder. The knife becomes the line of attention. Again and again, the chef returns from imagined verdict to present duty. He does not need the pressure to disappear before he becomes free. He needs only to stop granting pressure the authority to govern his judgment. The boundary of control does not reduce the chef's duty. It sharpens it. A man who understands what is his to govern cannot hide behind the excuse of pressure. He cannot say, the kitchen was intense, so I lost command. He cannot say, the guests were important, so I spoke with contempt. He cannot say, my reputation was at risk, so fear had the right to use my hands. No. The harder the service, the more exact the duty. The chef is responsible for his judgment before he is responsible for the plate. He is responsible for the assent he gives before he is responsible for the instruction he gives. If his mind has already agreed that one slip means ruin, then every action that follows will carry that corruption. The correction will be too sharp. The silence will be too cold. The movement will be too rushed. The standard will no longer serve excellence. It will serve fear. That is where many people confuse severity with discipline. They think discipline means becoming harder, louder, less reachable. They think responsibility means carrying the entire outcome on the back until the body bends and the mind grows bitter. But Stoic responsibility is cleaner than that. It does not ask you to control what is not yours. It asks you to stop abandoning what is. In that kitchen, duty has a shape. Check the edge of the Damascus steel knife. Inspect the station. Look at the timing. Tell the line cook what must change. Send back the plate that does not meet the standard. Protect the guest from carelessness. Protect the staff from confusion. Protect the work from vanity. And protect the ruling faculty from false assent. That last duty governs all the others. Because a chef ruled by fear may still demand excellence, but he will damage the room while doing it. He may correct the dish and corrupt the person. He may save one course and train the staff to associate precision with humiliation. He may preserve the appearance of control while losing the substance of it. Epictetus would not praise that. He would ask, what were you serving? The meal, or your image? The standard, or your fear of being judged? The duty of your role, or the story that failure would destroy you? A role is not a throne. It is an assignment. To be executive chef is not to be exempt from self-command. It is to owe self-command more rigorously, because others move under your direction. Your words become part of the atmosphere. Your pauses teach. Your anger teaches. Your accuracy teaches. Your panic teaches. The young cook at the station may not remember the philosophy of the night. He may remember the tone. He may remember whether correction came with clarity or contempt. He may remember whether the chef saw a human being under pressure or only an obstacle between himself and praise. This is where responsibility becomes practical. When a plate is wrong, say what is wrong. Do not add a verdict about the person. When timing slips, correct the timing. Do not turn the clock into an enemy. When pressure rises, lower the waste. Do not waste words. Do not waste anger. Do not waste attention on imagined reviews that have not been written. Duty is not dramatic. It is exact. The chef must act inside reality as it stands. If the sauce is broken, acceptance comes first. Not approval. Acceptance. The sauce broke. Now decide what is yours. Remake it, adjust the course, communicate the delay, assign the hand, preserve the standard, and refuse the useless luxury of outrage. Outrage feels powerful. It is usually expensive. It spends attention that should be used for correction. It spends authority that should be used for leadership. It spends time that should be used for the next governable act. The chef's duty is not to feel safe. It is to act rightly without demanding safety first. This is the mature standard. Not I will be composed when the room obeys me. But I will govern myself while the room is still uncertain. Not I will be fair when nothing threatens my name. But I will be fair when my name feels exposed. Not I will accept reality after I have secured the outcome. But I will accept reality first, because action begins there. The 12-course menu still matters. The guests still matter. The staff still matters. The craft still matters. Stoicism does not make a man careless. It removes the false god from the center. Failure is not the highest authority. Reputation is not the highest authority. The opinion of the room is not the highest authority. Choice is higher. Judgment is higher. Character in the next response is higher. So the chef stands in the kitchen, not as a man trying to become untouchable, but as a man refusing to be ruled by what can touch him. Rain outside. Steel in hand. Pressure in the room. Duty directly in front of him. The next plate must be made. The next word must be clean. The next judgment must be examined before it is obeyed. Freedom does not enter the kitchen when the service is over. It enters earlier. It enters when the chef hears the first false verdict and refuses to bow. It enters when the mind says, "This may fail," and judgment answers, "Then I will meet failure without surrendering command." It enters when reputation loses its throne and becomes what it always was, an external, unstable, borrowed from other minds. The rain continues. The guests still wait. The 12 courses still demand skill. The Damascus steel knife still requires attention. The hand must still be steady. The standard must still be held. Nothing about Stoic freedom removes the work. It removes the lie that the work owns the soul. That is the difference. A man ruled by externals needs the world to reassure him before he can act cleanly. He needs applause, certainty, perfect timing, approval, and protection from mistake. A disciplined man needs only the next governable action. He can accept the broken sauce, correct it, and move. He can accept the harsh review, examine it, and move. He can accept the pressure of the room without letting pressure become his master. This is not indifference to excellence. It is loyalty to the only source from which excellence can honestly come, trained judgment. The first verdict is often false. Do not obey it because it arrived quickly. Name the impression. Separate the fact from the sentence added by fear. Refuse false assent. Then act with precision inside what is real. The plate is in front of you. The knife is in your hand. Return to what is yours to govern.